how I have gotten good at sales over my career in coaching, and I wanted to share some of my lessons as to how I have done it. In case this is helpful for you to really learn to be comfortable selling your expertise, right? Because that's really the point of currently not only having the amazing expertise and experience, but also how are we able to communicate them and sell in the way that doesn't feel inadequate, doesn't feel fake, or doesn't feel like this is not who we are. And therefore, I'm hoping that by sharing my experience of how I have learned to do this, that you will be able to see for yourself how you can develop your own way of feeling very comfortable and good at doing sales as well, selling your expertise. So, I also want to, by the way, give you a specific example that I have done yesterday that will also illustrate what I mean by doing this, right? So, first off, all of this experience that I'm talking about of getting good at and also feeling comfortable doing that came from a lot of errors, a lot of failures, a lot of things that were so frustrating. So if you're going through that, know that this is part of learning a skill. Now, the other thing that I think made the big change for me is that when I treated sales as something that I'm gaining from, or something that is about me, something that they should buy this from me, or they should hire me, or they should be happy or like get excited about what I'm offering or who I am. If I come to the expectation to the sales with that mindset, then I know that I will be frustrated, and also I will be very much in the attached and weird feeling, like a needy feeling, and I don't like that, right? So I don't like being in the sales conversation in the attached and it has to work, and if it doesn't, then it will be bad or whatever. I don't want to come with that baggage. And the other main shift that has helped me a lot to think about sales as a conversation where we are discussing a solution for that person. And the same goes in the organizational setting. If you're doing a job interview, right, that's really what's happening, is that you are presenting your solution in the way that makes sense to them, and if they feel like it makes sense to them, then they would hire you. If it doesn't, then they wouldn't hire you, right? So that's why if I think about sales, nothing else than just the conversation about a solution that we're discussing together, then it feels like not selling at all. And in fact, I don't like the feeling of I am selling something, or I need to convince, or I need to make this work. I don't like any of those feelings because that feel very pressury, that feels unauthentic to me, and that feels like as if I'm tricking them or manipulating them into something that they don't want to. And I don't like those feelings, right? So that's why I think of it only about, okay, this is a conversation where we're discussing a solution that may work for them or may not work for them, and that's okay. But I would like to have that conversation where we see that if that solution works. So this what I call is selling without selling, meaning that I'm not really selling anything per se in the sense of, okay, you should buy this so that I can earn money from it, or so that you value my expertise and tell me how great I am or whatever. I don't want to go to that, and I don't want to make that about me, right? So that's, I think, is an important part. And again, there are a lot of different ways to learn this, and I would love to invite you to do this in my group coaching, or currently I'm actually doing it in my humanitarian millionaire mastermind group as well, where we're really focusing on finding our own style and ways of selling that feels authentic and feels good to be doing it, and doesn't feel like we're manipulating them or pushing them or salesy or any of that. So, as I said, these three things that helped me so much in my journey of understanding how sales work, right? So, one is knowing that we are discussing the solution to this, whatever it is that we're solving. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is I'm not here to convince or manipulate or anything. I'm here to present the solution the way that I see is working, and then whether they would like it or not. And then the third element is that attachment being released. So no expectations, no expectations of it has to work, or how can I make it work, or any pressure or salesy. All of that is actually going to intervene in the process, right? So these are the main, I think, elements that help me feel like this is about not about me, this is about the solution that we're discussing, and then the other person will see if that fits for them. So let me put this into a practice of how this can look like in practice. And I have done this yesterday, so I thought I would use that as an example to illustrate my point about solutions, right? And by the way, the other important part that I think we need to all understand is that in order for us to be good at sales, whether it's in the private sector or whether we are doing our own businesses, in order for us to be good at sales and doing the solution well, we obviously need to know the person or the organization or the entity who we want to be working with. We need to know them so well so that this solution is very tailor-made and works for them, right? So not only we need to understand what our expertise and capacity is, but also we need to know the other party so well as to be able to package the solution in the way that really makes sense to them. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're underestimating in the private sector transitioning is that we're not really sure about what the company is specifically looking for. And because we're not sure about, we're also then not sure about how we can sell our expertise to them, right? So obviously it makes sense that we can't sell something to someone without knowing how and where and in what specific context they will be using it. And the problem a lot of the time I see with humanitarians when they are transitioning is that because we have a lot of fears and worries and insecurities about approaching the private sector, whoever the company we want to work for, because we are not approaching them enough, we're not talking them to them enough, we also then don't know how best to articulate and position our expertise and selling process. So coming back to my example that I was talking about, right? So I had a sales conversation yesterday with an amazing humanitarian who came with this problem, let me put it this way, or challenge, that he wanted to leave his UNP4 P4 position after I think 13 or 15 years, and he was feeling a lot of emotions and burnout about how the funding crisis impacting the organization, even though his position is safe for at least another 1.5 2 years, but also him feeling a lot of workload and a lot of challenges, and also keep doing the same thing over and over again for a long years, feels like he needs some change, right? So, in that situation, knowing that he was in burnout, the first solution that I suggested is that we need to work through a lot of the emotions. Otherwise, we cannot get to really understanding and feeling what is it that he wants to do. He has some ideas as to what he would like to do, but we cannot really build anything unless we create some capacity, mental capacity, emotional capacity to be able to then brainstorm, right? So that's the first aspect that I talked about. And then the second one is how much we want to bring pension into the decision making equation. Meaning, do we keep working and finding opportunities within the UN in order for us to get the pension? Is that important? If it's not important, then what are we going to do? So that's the other part that we needed to discuss. And then the third part that I suggested, can we, because you are currently in this situation that is very challenging to be building something outside of the UN, can we start exploring opportunities of changing roles, changing positions, changing the content of the work within the organization? If so, which areas? And I have suggested one is the fundraising and the other is innovation section. And again, these are the solutions that I can propose because I know the organization so well. I know the struggles that he might be going through because I coach a lot of humanitarians in similar situations. So therefore, I'm able to then strategize with him in the sales conversation as to how we could problem solve a lot of the things that he's talking about, right? He wants to prioritize his family. Amazing. How do we prioritize that? And also, how do we keep working on the things that matter to him, but also not doing it in a very risky environment, right? So therefore, the solution that I was suggesting to him is, can we go to an area of work where we can fundraise your own positions money and also the project that you want to be working on, and let's test this out also within the organization, within the UN, and then if that works and viable, then we can explore how we can do that outside in the real world, right? So these are the solutions that I have proposed to him. So this was the sales conversation, right? So I have heard through all the things that he said, what are the problems that he mentioned in his current situation? What are the priorities that he has? And then what are the stumbling blocks that he's having, and then I was offering him solution that's less risky within the setting that he has currently, before then we jump off and do all the other things outside of the UN, right? So as you can see that when I explain this to people, and also in my groups, when I explain this to people, to humanitarians, as to how sales conversation is literally about proposing a specific type of solution that they can accept or they cannot accept based on whatever risks they may have, this is really what sales conversation is. But I think a lot of the times people have a lot of judgments, fears, worries, assumptions about sales or what sales can be or should be, and therefore they put extra amount of pressure on themselves, which is then creating the problem, like putting so much pressure on the conversation itself that we cannot really focus and be genuine and relaxed about what the outcome is, because again, we cannot control the outcome, obviously, right? But even if we cannot control the outcome, the purpose is how can we find ways to problem solve or work on specific solutions to this person's situation or to this organization's this type of situation that we can do any time of the day. And we are actually, as humanitarians, good at problem solving, right? We have, I don't know. I'm assuming you are like me, being put in situations that you have never thought you would ever experience, in situations where no textbook could teach you how to go about it, but you have gone about finding solutions. And the same way I see the sales conversation. And that's why I feel I have developed my own way of understanding as to what specific solutions that works for my people, and how can I discuss this in a way that makes sense to them, in a way that fits into their current unique situation, and then from there we go implementing that and then see how that goes, right? So in this situation, my this person who was in the sales conversation, he said yes, we will be working on this strategy. And not only he said yes, but he was very excited about how there are opportunities and possibilities that he hadn't even thought about before. And partly because of his burnout currently, but also because he just kept going into either I have to make something work here and stay miserable, or I have to go outside and search for a job and feel good about my freedom, but stay miserable not having the money, right? And this is what the typical survival brain does. Our survival brain will continue saying that either this or that, and either way you have to suffer, and that is optional. And I really want people to understand this for themselves. And the same goes for the sales conversation. That sales conversation doesn't need to be either it has to work and everything perfect, or it didn't and everything failed and I'm bad and all of this. We don't need to do that, because if we keep staying in the extremes, we will never be able to develop that nuanced way of solving problems. And therefore, I would really love for everyone who is watching this to really start understanding for yourself, okay, if I don't want to go for the extremes of either it has to work or it doesn't, either I'm salesy or pushy, or I am the great salesperson and I can't be either, so therefore let me stay out of the, like, let me stay away from sales. That is not how the world is working currently. And therefore, I really want everyone to challenge themselves to find their own style and way of presenting their solutions to whatever the situation that they are approaching in the way that makes sense. Just the way that I explained with my client yesterday, who became my client, right? And the same I would like for you to develop for yourself. And this is exactly what we want to do in the group as well, is for every person to develop their own unique solutions to be proposing to that private sector company, whoever that company is, whoever, whatever the role is, so that they then see that, yes, it is possible. Yes, it is. I can see how this will get us to the profits that we want to, or the revenue that we want to. And I can see how you would be able to support us in this. And if they can see that and they can really trust your abilities to be able to do that, then they're likely to hire you. Just like the client yesterday, right? And that's exactly what I would like for you to start thinking about, and also learning the skill for yourself, and learning the skill in the way that fits to you, to who you are, right? The So that you are no longer like battling around the sales itself, but rather you are starting to practice getting good at presenting solutions in the tailor-made way to the a person or to the entity that you are selling your expertise to. So, if you would like my help doing this, absolutely come coach with me in the group. The private sector transitioning group is open, and the enrollment is until 25th of April. So, I am keeping my groups very small, of 5 people, so that we can really get specific and like an intimate group of me supporting them as much tailor-made as possible in their journey to transition to the private sector, and be able to present the solutions in the way that I have explained to you, that feels very natural, very even maybe obvious in some way, but also doable and less risky, so that the people or the CEOs, whoever you're talking, can relate to and understand and say, yes, it makes sense to me and I would like your support. And that's what we're aiming for. Okay, majors, thank you so much for watching me and watching and continuing following my journey. But I just want to say that I have also started from not knowing anything to learning a lot of the techniques that didn't work for me, and then learning, okay, what is my way of doing things? And that's when I started getting good at it, because that felt honest and true to me. And I would like for you to approach this as well.